Well, good evening and welcome back, longtime listeners of Home Theater United. I'm Sam Poston, and this is episode 48. And tonight we have a very special guest, somebody that I never expected to have on the show. But we have famed audiologist and my audiologist, Dr. Bethany Anderson. Greetings, doctor. How are we doing tonight?
Hello, I'm good. I'm good. I don't know about famed, but definitely.
Well, maybe after tonight, all 200 of my listeners. So,
All
all right.
right. I'll
Well,
take it.
welcome to have you. So Dr. Anderson is my audiologist because earlier this year I was having constant tinnitus, and as she has corrected me, I guess the medical term is tinnitus. So I have learned many things on this journey. Um, but having done that and not expecting to need hearing aids until later in life, and it's weird being the same age as old people, is a T-shirt I saw this weekend. Apparently, I'm getting older and facing problems that I never considered before. So, Dr. Anderson, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is you do, and a little bit about the audiology profession and how you help folks.
I was saying I'm an audiologist in Harford County, Maryland. I have been working in this field for just a few years now. I started in public health and then I switched careers to become an audiologist. I work in a private practice in Maryland. The name is Hearing Associates. Shameless plug.
There you go.
I'm gonna sit right next to the router.
Okay. Well, it's not cutting out now, so let's try it again. So
Okay.
so we got all that. So just continue on from there. I'll cut all this out.
Okay. um. So yeah, I love what I do. I work with people who have hearing loss. I help to people who have tinnitus, such as yourself.
Okay, so let's pick it back up. We've had a little bit of a reset here. We had some technical difficulties with the audio, the sound of the call. So we've switched over to phone. So be a little lighter quality, but we should still be good. So, Dr. Anderson, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself again, and let's pick it back up from the start. Sorry, actually, you don't
No,
have to.
you're
You don't have to do the whole Harford County stuff. Just tell folks what it is that you do to help folks who have
sure.
severe issues.
Okay, so as an audiologist, I work with people who have hearing loss. I work with people such as yourself who have tinnitus. I work with people with identifying people who need further assessment for balance disorder testing. So that's usually vestibular testing. And I also am the person who would start the cochlear implant candidacy testing, as well as the activation of the cochlear implant once it has been surgically placed.
Okay, and for folks
Um,
that don't know what a cochlear implant is, can you kind of describe that a little bit?
sure. So a hearing aid is worn on the ear. A cochlear implant is a device that is actually two parts. There's one part that goes underneath the skin. It is surgically placed by I guess an otologist, or they're like the surgical ENT or otolaryngologist. But they would surgically place that electrode that goes into the ear, and it goes through the cochlea. And that, excuse me, it goes behind the ear, goes through the cochlea, and then it just stimulates the nerve directly. And then the outer portion is what most people would see. It looks kind of like a button, a large button, and that's the sound processor. And it's attached essentially by a magnet that's underneath the skin. So when it is placed on that magnet portion that's underneath the skin, the patient is able to hear.
That's amazing, and that technology's actually been around for a couple decades, right?
It has been. It's been around, I want to say, since the 70s,
Okay.
actually. So a little bit longer. But technology has gotten so much better. It went from being something that was kind of worn on the body, in
Mhm.
addition to that piece that goes on the head, to being now connected to the cell phone. You can listen to music, you can take your phone calls, all of that through the cochlear implant as well.
That
Some people can even swim. There's a waterproof option as
Wow,
well. So
that's amazing.
if you wanted to go swimming, you can put the processor in like a waterproof casing so you can hear while you're in the water.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
As somebody who's benefited from a lot of different technologies medically, I'm amazed at the continued advancements we've seen in my lifetime. So that's incredible, and I
And it's
think
only
that's
getting better.
yeah, probably not cheaper, but but more widely available anyway, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So, what about yourself? Are you a big movie fan? Music? Where do you fit on that spectrum?
Sure. So I do enjoy a good movie. I'm not a movie buff. I'm actually really terrible when it comes to like knowing who was in what movie
Hmm.
or what movies are coming out. But I actually have been in choir since I was 4 years old.
Oh, okay.
So I am very into music. My father, when he was alive, he was in a singing quartet. So I kind of grew up around music. I do enjoy a good musical number. I'm actually going to the Samara Joy concert tomorrow. She's a jazz performer,
Ooh, I
and she'll
don't
be
know her.
performing here. She's amazing. She's really young. She's in her 20s, but she is like her vocal ability is just beyond her years. It's amazing to see. It's amazing. This will be my second time hearing her perform live.
That's incredible. I'll have to look her up.
Yeah.
Have you been out to see Wicked?
I have not.
Yeah.
I probably really terrible. As much as I love musical, I am not, or as much as I love music, excuse me, I am not a musical person.
Ah,
Um,
okay. Yeah.
I enjoy the movement, but I don't like the storyline.
Oh, okay, no, I get it. No,
So,
I thought I would hate it, and I actually I enjoyed it quite a bit, although it was
okay.
and this is the first time or second time I will ever say this about a movie, it was a little bit too loud.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I saw it in IMAX
Interesting.
though, and it was just nonstop loud, and
Okay.
I like things blowing up and the sporadic use of explosions and loud components. I don't need it for 2.5 hours, so that it might have been
That's
a
fair.
bad choice
That's
for
fair.
IMAX for me, yeah.
Um, I'm sure that it was amazing, though. I think the only music I can say I really loved, or I guess there have been a couple, West Side Story
Okay, yeah.
and Hamilton were
Oh,
probably my favorite
yeah,
too.
I'm a big Hamilton fan. I've seen it on Broadway twice now, so,
So good.
not with Lin-Manuel, unfortunately, though.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, it was still very, very good. The guys that were covering his spot were really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so as part of that, as music and concert listeners and very loud movies, both at home and the cinema, home theater users are, prominently, you know, in the firing line for hearing loss. So, just in
Hmm.
general, what can people do to protect their hearing? And what can home theater users kind of target as far as their exposure to hearing loss?
Yeah. First of all, I just thought this was really cool that you're even thinking about this. Because I don't think this was a group of people that I really was just like, oh, we really should be like considering home theater
Yeah.
people when it comes to talking about hearing safety. Um, so just in general, just a little bit of, I know a home might not be this loud, but a normal conversation is usually between 60 and 70 dBA or decibels.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like a movie theater, the average decibel rating could go anywhere between 74 and 104 dBA,
Yeah.
which is a pretty big range. And a safe level is usually 85 dBA.
Okay.
So, what home theater viewers can do, definitely consider where the sound source is in your room and kind of adjust yourself accordingly. I know that, you want to kind of feel the sound,
Yes.
but that is probably really not good. You want to make sure that you that you are at a safe distance where you can still hear it and enjoy it, but maybe not be as close as you ideally want to be.
Okay.
Um, Definitely consider wearing hearing protection while you're in your theater. If you don't want to turn it down, then at
Mm-hmm.
least let's bring down that sound a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So what the hearing protection would do would kind of attenuate or kind of reduce what you're actually getting. You'll still get it at like nothing will be adjusted. The higher frequency sounds will still sound like higher frequency sounds. The gunshot will still sound like a gunshot. The low rumble will still sound like a low rumble. It will just be at a safer level.
Okay. And
Um,
so
sorry.
as part of that, um, I have so many thoughts. Um, so if you're cutting off the actual noise or sound that's getting to your eardrum, but you're
Mhm,
still feeling the rumble from like a subwoofer, is that
mhm.
safer, or is that rumble still kind of permeating the body and still doing damage?
The rumble is still permeating the body and can still do damage.
Hmm.
So something that I actually saw, because again, this is not the area that I typically get questions on.
Sure.
But one of the things that I saw when it came to that low rumble is that it's actually not safe for people who are pregnant.
Oh,
Um, yeah, so lower frequency sounds travel through the body more easily than higher frequency sounds.
that's why we
And
like them.
so and that's why you like them. Exactly, exactly. But that low frequency exposure could actually impact fetal development.
Oh boy.
And the CDC recommends that pregnant people should not be in any situations louder than 115 dBA during pregnancy. And
Hmm.
so, like, while that range that I gave was the average of 74 to 104 dBA, a lot of movies do exceed that when it comes to kind of like those loud sounds that will occur in a movie.
Okay.
So
And so
keeping that
every 10 dB is a doubling, right? Roughly. S-
roughly,
Yeah,
yeah,
yes.
roughly.
So if you're talking 115 dB, that's like six doublings of a normal conversation. That's a pretty
That's
big
pretty
difference.
big. Yeah, yeah. But you do also again have to consider like where the sound is coming from and things like that. But overall, you do want to just stay safe.
Okay, have you heard the term Dolby Atmos?
I have because of this podcast.
Yeah, yeah. So the whole idea with Dolby Atmos and home theater in general, there's a term MLP, main listening point or main listening position. The idea is
Hmm.
to have sound surround you like a Tupperware bowl over your
Exactly.
body, so you're getting sound from everywhere, which sounds like it would be a big difficulty to try to isolate from any particular speakers. Maybe you could be further from
Right.
the main speakers, but then you're going to be closer to some of the
To
surrounds and
another
stuff like
one.
that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, when I was kind of doing a little bit more of a deep dive, um, I was trying to figure out kind of the difference between like an IMAX and a Dolby,
Mm-hmm.
or IMAX and Dolby.
Sure.
And I just thought it was really interesting that Dolby tries to create that soundscape.
Yes.
And then like IMAX has like their proprietary acoustic standards,
Yes.
but they kind of are trying to achieve the same thing, like you said, where no matter where you are in the room, the sound is the same. And you kind of have that full body, full experience, that rich sound,
Yes.
almost like you're in there. And that is dangerous. That can be, it's dangerous.
So
um,
So from that perspective, here in Central Maryland, we are actually blessed to have one theater that has both Dolby and IMAX, and that's in White Marsh at
okay.
the AMC there. So
Yeah.
as like a field trip exercise, audiologists could actually hear the difference between, and sometimes on the same movie, you know, if you were to get like a 4 o'clock and a 6 o'clock showing,
Mhm,
you
mhm.
you could hear the difference between the two of them, and that's actually something that home theater buffs and cinema buffs would like to do as well. They will back to back go watch the same
Kind
movie
of
in
like a
two
double
different
feature.
theaters as like a double, yeah, yeah, to see which one's better. And like if you're the first person at the first showing, you can
Mhm.
tell people online and Reddit and Twitter slash X, hey, I think this one's better for this reasons, and this one's better for the other reasons, and they're very similar, but you're right that Dolby really tries to do that whole dome like um, coverage where IMAX is just loud all around you.
Yeah.
The difference is in the Dolby software is doing things in an object based way. So if you have a gunshot, they can track that gunshot in 3D space, whereas IMAX is the old traditional. This sound is coming from this speaker and moving to this speaker, and it doesn't know
Right.
each of the individual components. Again, long story short, you know, they're both loud, but I think Dolby, you know, is a little bit more precise about where it puts those kinds of
Hmm.
sounds.
I
Um,
will say, sorry, I thought it was interesting that if the person who is like running the theater tries to turn down the volume, at least for IMAX, like there's like a central location
mhm,
that kind of gets that information and then turns it back up to the correct level. So it's like even if the theater wanted to turn it down
yeah.
because it is loud, they can't.
Yeah, it's all networked, right? And they're
Yeah.
basically just computer files that are designed to send speakers at specific levels to specific speakers that are matched to like their algorithm to do that. So there's very little human in the middle kind of
Yeah.
controlling things anymore. Now, I did go to a showing a couple weeks ago where things were set incorrectly on a non IMAX and non Dolby show, and they were able to
Mm.
fix that. But I've also been in shows where if something goes wrong with the software, they just send all 300 people home.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, yeah. So you know, not not 100% better in all those ways. Yeah.
Right. Right. Oh wow. Okay. Okay. Okay.
So,
Um,
is short exposure to loud things acceptable, or really any high volume stuff is bad for you? It's like a continuous damage, right? It's
yeah.
like it's you know, it piles up on top of it.
So exposure over time is always going to be dangerous, but there are some people like your ears are sensitive. Those hair cells are very, very, very sensitive. And it really does only take one traumatic experience for your ears to not recover. Noise exposure isn't just something that occurs like over time. Yes, you could
Mhm.
have repeated exposure, but like as I've said, it can only take one loud experience. I have patients who they wear hearing protection every time they go to the shooting range. And then
Mhm.
the one time that they have it off just to
Yeah.
kind of hear what someone's saying, someone shoots a gun, and
Mhm.
then that's where they've lost their hearing, or that's when the tinnitus has begun. Or some people have worked in like a factory for like 30 years, and the tinnitus may not have started 30 years ago, but they've noticed it over time that their hearing is starting to change, that their perception of their tinnitus is also changing. And it wasn't like that one time that they were in that environment, but over time, that repeated exposure. So it really does one depend on your biology, but any repeated exposure or even just one loud exposure could impact your hearing.
Oh boy,
Um,
I hadn't even thought about talking about this, but I know that some of my hearing issues are caused by being a shotgun shooter. I was a deer hunter
mm,
in my, from 13 to 30. Um, and
oh wow.
thinking about it, um, the cabin that we all hung out in is nicknamed Hard of Hearing Hill, or
Huh.
Hill, and to a man, everybody has hearing issues. Now, the older generation, which is currently passing, include my dad. Every one of them had hearing protection, and
Oh,
nobody wore any kind of protection in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. And
right, right, right.
I know as a casual shooter now, it's very important to wear, hearing protection in like a range or something like that. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of the damage was done when I was younger, and the home theater, probably isn't helping. Um, but uh,
Absolutely not.
but we can be smarter about it today. I guess that's my point.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
Something. Oh, sorry.
no, no, go ahead. No,
You might be asking this question.
sure.
Um, just I saw a tip because again, movies are not necessarily what I find myself listening to or watching on a regular basis. However, I saw a tip that said that setting the max volume or setting the volume to 80% of the max volume for 90 minutes a day is a good way to ensure that you're not like overexposing yourself.
Okay.
So if it's set at 100%, putting it at 80%, whatever that 80% is, and then 90 minutes at that 80% a day
Yeah.
is really the safest bet for you.
So in the theater world, we have what's called reference levels, right? And that's
Okay.
the sound that something, if you were to think about it as a canned experience, this is the sound that the director, and the sound designers think you should listen to this at.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the disc-based stuff, is pretty close in, if you were to throw just a random movie in the drive, and you were to listen to it at what you consider your reference level, because again, it's all, there's no scientific background on any of this, but if you listen to that at the what you feel is comfortable, maybe just knock it back a couple notches probably would be the best idea.
Yeah.
So, what about wearing headphones and things like that? I know that there's been a lot of research into people, damaging their hearing because they're wearing headphones more than
Right.
than ever before. What can we do with that, especially with regard to music listening?
Definitely turning the volume down. Again, I know it doesn't give the same effect when it's not as loud, but that
Hmm.
really is the safest way to ensure that you're protecting your ears. I love that a lot of technology now has kind of the alert that
Yes.
things are too loud.
Yeah.
I would take heed.
Apple in particular has been very good about that.
Yeah, I would definitely take heed because even though it's not as probably as accurate as, going to like an audiologist or having like the sound level meter measuring in like your personal space or something like that, depending on, I guess, which brand you get, whether you get Apple or you have an
Mhm.
Android. But it is kind of detecting that it's too loud and it's trying to warn you. So I would definitely turn it back when I get that notification.
Okay. And the same question as before, right? If you're hearing that loud thumping, in the headphones, and there's a lot of headphone brands that try to
Mm-hmm.
enhance that. That's just as bad as the high frequency stuff, maybe even worse these
Absolutely.
days, right?
Absolutely. And with the headphones, it's closer to your eardrums. So,
Mm.
keep that in mind as well.
So that thump that you're hearing around your ears going all the way into the drum. And so I guess there was kind of like an old wives' tale, or pseudoscience that's been presented to home theater users, that the low frequency stuff is not as bad for you, and you're here to say that's bunk, right?
I mean, all loud sound is not good. So, whether it's a high frequency or a low frequency, it's not safe at a loud level. And then, yes, there are just further things to consider when you are listening at those lower frequencies.
Okay. So changing the topic a little bit, I have noticed that with my hearing aid, the more I wear it, the less I'm having tinnitus episodes. And so my tinnitus tends to come and go, but it's almost every day, especially if I haven't worn, get up in the morning, that's when I'm experiencing it. But later in the day, it seems to be more controlled, or at least I'm tuning it out. So other than getting hearing aids and turning things down, is there anything that we can do to extend our hearing?
Um, to extend your hearing. Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely wearing hearing protection when you're in loud situations. I know I sound like a
No, but
broken
it's
record.
good. It's
But
good advice, right?
yeah, wearing hearing protection, like you said, turning down the volume. If you have hearing aids, wearing the hearing aids especially are important if your goal is to slow down any progression of loss,
Hmm.
because it's giving your brain that stimulation that it's not getting when you're not wearing the hearing aids. So it's really important that if you do have hearing loss and you are prescribed hearing aids, that you are actually wearing the hearing aids during all waking hours,
Hmm.
even in those quiet situations.
Can you expand a little bit more on the brain wanting those signals, because that really took me by surprise. I had thought that when I got the hearing aids, that it would really only get the most important vital conversations and stuff in there. But from what I'm learning, it sounds like we're just trying to balance out between the two ears, and if you have more tinnitus and loss in one ear, it's better to try to to feed that just a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works?
Um, sure. I can also explain what tinnitus is as well.
Yeah, let's start there.
Um, Some people call it tinnitus,
Hmm.
but it is ringing, buzzing, humming, hissing that your brain has decided to create. It can also be sound like a music note. Some people hear instruments. Some
Hmm.
people hear cicadas. Some people hear crickets.
Oh.
Again, these are all sounds that your brain has decided to produce. And it's creating these sounds because it's recognizing that something is off. So basically, like if it's medication related or stress related or diet related, a lot of times when those things are corrected or adjusted for, then the tinnitus will a lot of times go away. But when it's hearing related, such as like noise induced hearing loss or like a temporary threshold shift because you were in a loud situation or there's a change in your hearing, it's usually also permanent. So
Hmm.
when I tell, so basically, when it is hearing related, your brain is trying to fill in the gap where it feels that there is those frequencies aren't being addressed by like your environment. So what it's doing is just trying to give your brain what it thinks it's missing. And then when you wear hearing aids, because you now have sound coming from your environment into your ears, and it's being presented to your brain at those frequencies where you have hearing loss, your brain, while it doesn't get rid of the tinnitus, it doesn't perceive your tinnitus as much because now it's getting that stimulation that it's been craving when it's putting out that tinnitus sound. So when you're wearing your hearing aids, because you're feeding your brain those frequencies, your tinnitus isn't really perceived. Some people do still notice their tinnitus, but it's not to the level as when they're like not wearing their hearing aids.
Yeah, I
Um,
can definitely vouch for that. It definitely
yeah,
has made a big difference in my life. Um, you know, the the discomfort and all the other baggage that comes with wearing a hearing aid just fades away when you realize that it's actually they're actually doing their job.
well, it makes me happy.
Yeah, we did a great job with my earpiece and stuff like that, and I went with a relatively technologically advanced company. I'm not going to name names, um, but I know that there's been a lot of change in the marketplace recently because there have been changes to the laws, and we now have over-the-counter hearing aids.
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about those and the difference between those and what you provide as a certified audiologist?
Sure. So, an over-the-counter hearing aid is a hearing aid that you can just kind of walk into the store and pick up or order from like Amazon or Walmart. So over-the-counter hearing aid is one that you could get basically without an audiologist. So you would notice that you need help, you buy a device, and you kind of hope for the best.
Mhm,
Um, and the nice thing about the OTC is that a patient recognizes that there's a problem.
mhm.
So you're really not buying an OTC unless you realize, like, I need a little bit of help.
Right.
But the con to it is that they really are ideal for people who have a mild or possibly a moderate loss.
Mhm,
Moderate is kind of stretching it, and a configuration that's a little bit more flat. So a lot of times as you're getting older, you're losing those higher frequency hair cells before you lose those lower frequency hair cells. So your hearing loss likely is not going to be a more flat configuration. It's going to be more sloping. We call that presbycusis when it's age-related hearing loss. If you have a noise notch, which is kind of what you expect from somebody who's had repetitive exposure to noise, or even just like that one single exposure that could have done damage to their ears, again, you may not have that flat configuration because you may have maybe a mild loss and then it kind of slopes down and then quickly shoots back up. So an over-the-counter hearing aid would still not address some of those frequencies where you would have the most need for help. Um, and honestly, if you've never had a hearing evaluation, you wouldn't know if your hearing loss is more severe than what an over-the-counter hearing aid can handle.
Yeah, in
Um,
in my case, it was, and it definitely. I feel like I made the right decision to go ahead and get a prescription set of hearing aids that addressed the very specific notches and where my deficiencies lie. And
yeah,
my understanding of that the OTCs is that, as you said, they're flat, right? So they're not addressing any specific deficiencies that a particular patient would have, and so they might mask, the loss, but they're not necessarily, giving
address.
you everything you need.
Right. And also, I'm not gonna knock them again because
Sure.
honestly, if you get a higher quality over the counter, I know Bose used to have some. I
Hmm.
don't know if they still do. And there are a couple other companies that have over the counter hearing aids that are pretty pricey.
Yeah.
Um, and so if you're going to give that amount of investment into an over the counter that's like a couple $1,000s,
Yeah.
you might want to think about what your insurance covers
Yeah.
for a pair of hearing aids that are actually prescribed by an audiologist. A lot of people are usually surprised that they have a benefit through
Yes.
their insurance.
Yeah, my insurance paid a good chunk of mine, and it definitely would have bridged the gap between an OTC one and given me the specific prescription one that you were able to fit me with. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're also seeing companies like Apple, because they're obviously dealing with headsets and music and everything along that ecosystem, start to take hearing seriously, and they've just made their first products available with hearing um, protection and or adjustment. And I've tried them out. I have the AirPods set up so that when I'm in a loud environment, I can use their pass through, and obviously
Hmm.
only in one ear if I'm keeping my hearing aid in, but on an airplane and stuff like that, it's definitely helpful. And
Okay.
any thoughts on those guys entering, and if you think we'll see a
Yeah.
major shift with that?
I will say, as an audiologist, and honestly, the audiologist world, we weren't surprised that Apple was going to come out with something along this level, mostly because Apple was one of the first manufacturers to make their devices compatible with hearing aids. So
Hmm.
there wasn't the need for an additional accessory to connect your phone to your hearing aids.
Right.
As technology has improved, a lot of manufacturers now can connect to an Android device without the need for an additional piece. And it's usually like a neck loop or some kind of like remote mic or something that connects to the hearing aids and then to the phone. Sorry, connects to the device, the hearing
Right.
aids to the device, and then the device to the phone. So once we saw that they also were using like their low energy Bluetooth to connect to a number of hearing aid manufacturers,
Hmm.
we kind of were like, okay, they're coming out with something.
Yeah.
So it wasn't surprising to see that they came out with this or that they've come out like with their own kind of like OTC option as well. Um, but I think it's good in the sense that it's giving people kind of an awareness, like, you know, you are wearing something that could potentially do damage, and we are here to give you a way to preserve your hearing. But also, it's almost, I don't want to say it's a little too late, but it, I mean, they've been around. I was in high school. I graduated high school in 2006. So I remember like the first iPhone, I
Hmm.
want to say was somewhere around that time.
Yes.
And people have been blasting music since then. It's been accessible, it's been portable. The iPod before that didn't necessarily have those features. So there's just a couple generations who have kind of grown up with just kind of blasting music at their leisure
Yeah.
and constantly. So I know this is a terrible analogy, but it's kind of like when like the cigarette companies were just like, don't smoke, but they still like,
Kept
but
selling
they
everything.
still
Sure.
offer, right. So terrible analogy and probably a bit of a stretch, but like it took a number of years for them to even get to that point.
Right.
And it took a number of years for like these for Apple in particular to kind of get to this point
Yeah.
as well.
The one thing I'll note is, like, at best you're going to get 8 to 10 hours of something like that, and my hearing aid will go for, I think they're rated for 52 hours, and
They
I and
are.
I've taken them for whole weekends without chargers, because I forgot it or didn't have the charging cable, and it's got a battery backup so that you can charge it overnight. And I know the AirPods do too, but
Yeah.
it's and again, it's the first inning with Apple and stuff like that, so I can only see it getting better.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as of today, I see it kind of like a band-aid or a first tentative step, whereas the hearing aids are, purpose built, and these guys have 60 and 80 years of technological development,
Right,
and they've
right.
got literally fleets of software engineers and hardware engineers that are designing something for one purpose only, and that's to make sure that you can hear well for all day and
Yeah,
in comfort too. So and you
exactly.
get music and stuff on top of that. You can tie the streaming to it. I don't do that because I have such a wild different ecosystem of different devices that it didn't work for me to set up my phone to do streaming and stuff like that. But when I go to a full pair, I can see that day coming where, I will
Yeah.
tie it to a phone and say, that this is how we operate today. So I can definitely see that coming.
And they've come so far, again, not naming names on any manufacturers. But there's falls detection for like older
Yes.
adults.
Yeah.
There's a balance assessment as well, again, for older adults. But there's also, find my hearing aid
Yes.
if you are somebody who prone to losing
Mhm.
things. It's really they've come a long way with hearing aids. And they also can cap out or tap out at a certain level. So hearing aids, while they are designed to kind of make things louder, in addition to addressing clarity and background noise management and things like that, they do have a safety level in them. So
Mhm.
if it does get to a certain noise level, your hearing aid will actually shut off, and it's out of
Oh,
safety because it can't exceed a certain level.
well, I haven't
And
had that happen yet, so good on me for that. So we'll try to avoid that for sure.
yeah, for sure.
One of the strange things that I never saw happening is as I've gone through this process, I'm pretty much an open book with my health, with talking with friends and family and stuff like that. And as soon as I had regular tinnitus, I'm like, "Oh no, this is a problem. I might be too late already, but what can I do to try to correct this and try to prevent, losing my hearing earlier than possible?" And as
Mhm.
I've talked to people, they're like, "Oh yeah, I've got constant tinnitus too, and I haven't done anything about it." I'm like, "Are you crazy? Are you just gonna let it get it bad?" So, I mean, is it too late if you start going to an audiologist when you've discovered you've got a problem? Should people, I mean, we're told like if you hit 50, you really should go for a colonoscopy, right? Is there
Mhm.
like a minimum age where people should start thinking about regularly seeing an audiologist to prevent problems?
Absolutely. So, people actually start losing their hearing if it's age related. It's
Hmm.
typically in their 50s.
Okay.
But I've again seen people younger. I'm seeing people in their 40s. I'm seeing people in their 30s. I'm seeing people in their 20s who might not have hearing loss, but are having increased difficulty in background noise
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah.
We can hear between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz.
Okay.
But what we kind of use as I like to call your everyday frequencies are between 250 and 8,000. So that's typically what we would test on a hearing test, like if you came into an audiologist.
Okay.
So when we do that test, if it comes in that normal range, but you still are experiencing tinnitus,
Hmm.
it could be that your tinnitus is actually at those higher frequencies, or the hearing loss, excuse me, is at those higher frequencies. So, like beyond 8,000, so 10,000, 12,000, 14,000. That would require a different kind of hearing test.
Okay.
And we do have that where we practice, or where I practice. But um the best thing you can do is get a baseline test. Even if you don't think you have hearing loss, having a baseline allows you to at least know where you stand. But any tinnitus, you should really go in to get your hearing evaluated. And if it is pulsatile tinnitus, which means that it's kind of in rhythm with your heartbeat, in addition to seeing me, you would also want to see an ear, nose, and throat doctor or an otolaryngologist. They are the same thing,
Hmm.
because it could mean that something medically needs to be addressed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So whether not
Well,
to go too deep into the science, but
well,
it could.
I'm going to go deep here because on the home theater side, there is kind of an arms race in subwoofers to get subwoofers that are capable of reproducing sounds as low as 6 and 7 hertz. Um,
Interesting.
so you might be testing at higher levels while the bass heads are going deeper and deeper. So that might be a
That's
problem for the future.
so. Oh, absolutely. That's so interesting because anything that's too low, it's usually a vibrotactile response, like which is why
Yes.
it's not safe for somebody who is carrying an infant,
Yeah.
just because of those low frequency.
But your body
It,
feels it for sure, and
your body is
that's what the
feeling
bass
it.
heads and subwoofer fans are digging into. Yeah.
And I mean, that also taps into another area of sound. It's not just our ears. We do feel through we hear sound through our whole body
Mhm.
through those vibrations. I don't think some people really think about that, which is honestly why people who are capital D deaf or a part of deaf culture can
Mhm.
dance on beat because
Oh,
they're able
okay.
to feel those vibrations from the music.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's not that their ears are working, but their body is.
Okay.
But that is at that level that I'm curious to know how loud it would be, or they are proposing it to be at like 6 hertz, because
Yeah,
that's very, very low.
that there are Reddit groups that I could point you to and websites and things like that where again, a lot of these guys are dealing with dangerously high sound to begin with. It's not really my area of expertise or enjoyment, but there are people who are into it. So yeah,
I wish you could see my face right now. I'm just like, oh,
aghast, I'm sure. Yeah.
oh
So
my goodness.
yeah. So I mean, even in those cases, right? Wearing headphones while being exposed to loud, low vibrations is still dangerous, is what you're saying.
It's so dangerous, yeah, because the headphones really are designed for those higher frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
It's designed for noise in general, but it's really going to attenuate best, I would say, in those higher frequencies than the lower, just because, as we've said, as they get lower, it becomes more vibro tactile as it gets
Mm-hmm.
louder. So, and it does that as well in the higher frequencies, but not at that same level as the lower frequencies. It doesn't have to be as loud to be vibrotactile in the lower frequencies as it does in the higher frequencies.
Well, I thought done my research for the last couple months, but I myself have learned a ton tonight, doctor. So I can't thank
Aw.
you enough. So I'll tell you, I'll share my ignorance here. When I got my first realized that I had the tinnitus, I did what any tech head would do and just Googled audiologist near me, and I was lucky enough to find your practice, and you guys have been great. But what should somebody who's concerned about this and wants to protect their hearing, where would you send them, and what course of action would you start them down?
Absolutely. If you want to get a head start in protecting your hearing, definitely hearing protection in those noisy situations. Because while it might not be a 100% fireproof way to protect at those loud levels, especially in those lower frequencies, it is doing something. But definitely see who's nearby. Check out your nearest audiologist. I think Maryland is unique in the sense that there are so many audiologists, it can almost be overwhelming. But I'm very grateful that you came to see us because you've been
Oh,
fantastic.
thank you. Thank you so much. No,
Um,
like I said, I take this very seriously. I have a litany of different health problems, and there are things that I can change and things that I can't. And I wanted to put, my hearing in the let's protect this at all cost column. So
well,
I jumped on it and have been very happy with you guys. And I
well,
feel
thank
that you've
you.
done just as much as an educational, um, you know, pr- uh, provider as you did technological. So that's been helpful.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and I've enjoyed working with you.
Okay, one last chance. Anything that you'd like to talk about or promote? You want to give the name of your practice one more time?
Sure. We are Hearing Associates. We have two locations in Harford County, Maryland. One is in Bel Air and one is in Havre de Grace. And we work with quite a few. We work with three different hearing aid manufacturers. I always tell people there's usually like five, maybe six top manufacturers, and we work with three of them.
Hmm.
So you really can't go wrong with any of the three if you come to our practice. We're always trying to educate our patients so we don't just kind of do your test and kind of fit you at something and send you on your way. We want to
Right.
make sure that you are comfortable, that you um, understand or have, some level of understanding on why we're doing what we're doing. I want you to feel like you're a part of the decision process. Um,
And I can echo
so,
that for sure. 100%. Five out of five, no notes.
so yeah, I mean, and then also like, if you are interested in hearing protection that is custom, we can also do something like that as well. You can get musicians plugs, you can get some for the gun range. It really depends on what you're looking for. Hearing protection, hearing protection, hearing protection. I cannot stress that enough.
Well, I have learned my lesson maybe 30 years too late, but hopefully this can get out to some folks and stress to them that, you only get one set of ears, just like,
You
the
do.
one set of eyes. So
Yep,
let's
yep.
let's protect them as best we can, and so that we can enjoy the music and movies and all those other kinds of art forms for as long as we can.
Yes, 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 yes. And the world is a beautiful place, and the world is a place full of sound,
Yep.
even in quiet.
Yep.
So try to get to enjoy that for as long as you can.
100%. And I have been noticing things around the house that, I thought I wasn't going to hear ever again because, it gives the full range of hearing, not just the voices. And that was unexpected and certainly welcome.
I love that.
All right. Well, Dr. Anderson, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. And I hope you do get a chance to see Wicked either at home or out in the theater sometime soon. Oh, you're not that kind of person.
I'm
I
not,
hope you
but I
enjoy your
do love
concert.
Cynthia Erivo, so I
Okay.
might have to go give it a shot.
Okay. Well, we will put your the concert that you're the concert artist that you were talking about. What's their name again? We'll put them in the show notes. And
Samara Joy,
can you spell that?
Samara, and then the word joy.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes and expose our listeners to even more great music. So thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, this has been Home Theater United, episode 48 with Dr. Bethany Anderson. I'm still Sam Poston. We will see you next time. Hey, and we're doing our next episode on December 23rd. So it's been a long break, but we are back, baby. Thanks, Dr. Anderson, and we are out.
Bye.